Hello and welcome to this repair tutorial, and today we're going to look at a Denon PMA720AE. No longer available, so you may see a number of these available on auction websites for sale, and commonly they have a number of issues, but one of those will be covered in this repair tutorial. So general specifications: RMS power output is 50 watts per channel into 8 ohm loads, and you have the ability with this amplifier to have two sets of speakers connected at the rear. And if you want private listening just via the headphone socket, you can just select speaker A or B, and then you can just de-energize. And when you do that, you just hear the click of the speaker protection relays just disengage. And then if you have 4 ohm speakers, then that will increase in terms of RMS output power up to 85 watts per channel. And then frequency response is 10 Hz to 100 kHz. Overall good total harmonic distortion coming in at 0.7%. And then input sensitivity, because you can connect a direct turntable to it, you don't need any form of equalizer or preamplifier for removing magnet type cartridge, direct connection. That's 2.5 millivolts, and then 120 millivolts for all of your other line inputs as well. And from the front fascia of the amplifier, you have individual treble, bass and balance controls, and which is common on these amplifiers. You also have this nice button where you have a loudness, so you see a significant increase in the audio level when you do that, and also the direct mode, which is to really disengage the tone control circuits. And it does come with a remote control, fully featured, so of course you can operate the amplifier from the front or via the remote control, and then if you use the remote you can also place the amplifier into standby mode as well. And then in terms of dimensions, you're looking at 430 millimeters wide by 121 high, and then 300 millimeters deep, with an overall weight of 7.1 kilograms. So really, what was the issue with this amplifier? Well, I sort of alluded a few moments ago, which are just about common types of faults that you experience with this amplifier. And the most common one that you do see is, unfortunately, the failure of the large power transformer. And then what I'm just showing here in the video is an extraction from the service manual. I've sort of grabbed a couple of screenshots on there, so you can see what we call the startup transformer or startup circuit, and then also like a block diagram of the large power transformer. Now what happens is that the primary of the transformer goes open circuit, and you'll see in the video as well that I actually show the failed transformer, and on the white label on the top with a part number on there, you can also see that it denotes that it has an internal thermal fuse. Now you find that these transformers go open circuit, but there's no other underlying issue. And more recently, and for people who are regular listeners to these repair blogs, you will have seen that I had a 600 NE NE amplifier come in the workshop, relatively new, and again it seemed to use the same transformer manufacturer, and it also had the same issue where the thermal fuse had gone open circuit. So when you look at the schematic or the high level overview on here from the service manual, what is it that the power transformer actually provides? Well, it will provide the main power for the power output stage of the amplifier. So what we call this, we call it a dual secondary. So you have the output power or the output supply then for the main power amp, and then what it also does is it has these secondary or a secondary winding, which are dual windings, which provide the power then, which is the 15 volt supply. So this is both a plus and minus 15 volt supply, which is used for the input selection IC because it's not mechanical. It uses a solid state IC to do the input selection, and it also will feed all of the op amps in the preamplifier circuit as well. And then on the left hand side, what I'm pointing to is the startup transformer. So really how you identify that this is the issue is that when you first connect the amplifier to the mains outlet and then you operate the power button, what you'll see is that the amplifier tries to initialize, and after 2 or 3 seconds you'll hear a click, and what that click is, it's actually this relay which is shown on the startup circuit or schematic here, and then it just will click on. If it provides the power to the large power transformer and the primary is an open circuit, then the protection circuits will monitor, and then it will see that the voltages are present, and then it will then, after a few more seconds, if you've got either speaker A or speaker B selected, you'll hear that those relays will energize, and also the relay on the power startup board will also latch, and then everything is good. How you identify the fault is, if you initialize with the power, what you'll find, it tries to energize and you hear it click, but then you hear the startup relay de-energize, and then what you'll find is the front LED then is just strobing and flashing red. So that kind of gives you a good indication that you know, it's going to be the primary that's open circuit then, which is unfortunate. And the cost of these transformers, as I've said a number of times, is not insignificant. Now on the startup power board, it's just on the left hand side at the back where the power comes in, you've got two protection fuses. Now these two protection fuses, sometimes you can find that they're blown. If you do see that, then it's probably the second most common issue that you see with this series of amplifier. It's either the right or the left channel output transistors which have failed. Since I've been doing these repair tutorials, I haven't had one come in, but prior to doing the repair tutorials, I used to see more and more amplifiers of the PMA series with their blown outputs, but no, now it seems to be always the transformer issues. So how do I actually undertake the repair? Well, you know, I could go off and purchase one of these transformers at an eye-watering price, which I don't. What I do, and I show this in the video, I have in stock a toroidal equivalent, and the toroidal transformer, I also have a base plate which matches the same footprint dimensions as the original EI type transformer, and it also has an inbuilt thermal fuse as well, so that's good. So I'm not sort of taking away any kind of, you know, protection for the consumer. It's in there. And then what I do here is I do, when you sort of get these transformers, you just have a through hole, and then you pass the bolt through via the necessary washers, and then, as with all toroidal transformers, you'll have a rubber mat, and that rubber mat connects between the base plate and the bottom of the transformer, and it's just like an anti-slip mat, and then you can then just lock it into place with the top locking nut. And because it's the same footprint, I can use exactly the same mounting screws, and I just drop it onto position and then tighten the 4 screws then. Now the original transformer comes with a number of rubber sleeves over each one of the windings, both for the primary wires as it connects, and then also for the dual secondaries as well. Sometimes if you're going to refit those, it's a little bit difficult trying to thread the wires back through. So what I'd advise you to do there is just spray a little bit of oil down there, because it's rubber on rubber, and as soon as you do that, they should pass through quite easily. But my advice here, any sort of replacement transformer will not have the existing connection plug. So what I do for the smaller ones, I just cut them off with a length of lead, and then I can then reattach the new transformer leads to it with some heat shrink then for insulation. But for the primary input of the transformer and also the power stage, because the current is much higher, they use a larger type connection plug, and that's really easy. You can just lift up the locking tabs on the connector plugs and just slide out the connector inside, just open up the cable grip, cut it off, and then you can then cut your new wires once you've tinned them and just solder them back in place and then slot them in there. And once you've done that, you should find that when you then try and initialize the amplifier, there is no external or sort of soft start facility on here to reset the protection circuit. It will auto reset. And then the only other thing that you need to do is to reset the bias. As with any sort of transformer, you know, there's always tolerances, and what you'll find, as in my case, was that the bias should be 10 millivolts plus or minus 0.5 millivolts. That's what is recommended in the service manual, and it's very easy to do the alignment. So just ensure that you have no speakers connected, and then no input signal. Set your volume and control to a minimum setting, and then just your bass, treble and tone controls then, and balance control just at midpoint, and leave the amplifier running for about 20 minutes just in a stable environment. You know, you don't want to draft the area as such. And then what you'll find on the board, I sort of show this with the circuit diagram or the schematic, you just have 2 sort of test connectors, one for each channel, and they're just connecting across the emitter resistors. and what you need to do is just to use a screwdriver then just to do the adjustment of the presets for each one of the channels until you read approximately 10 millivolts. As with any adjustment, you know, once I've done this, I will leave the amplifier running maybe for another 15 minutes, and then finally what I do is I just do a final alignment. But often, you know, you don't find any issue. And then the other thing that I will check, or what I did check on this amplifier, was just to verify that there was no high DC offset. Because of the protection circuit, if there was, then the amplifier would have gone into protection mode. But you know, there's minimal DC offset on these newer type design type amplifiers, and it's relatively low. You know, it sort of comes in about 1.2 millivolts or thereabout, respective for each one of those, each one of the channels. And then the only other thing was just to do a full performance check, and everything was fine then. So that sort of brings us to the conclusion then for this repair tutorial. So as always, I really appreciate you stopping by and listening, and if you need any help, guidance or support to repair any amplifier that you're looking at, then by all means just email Audio Amplifier Servicing at AOL.com, and I'll be really happy just to respond back to you and to give you any guidance and support you may require. So until the next time, I wish you all well, and thanks very much indeed. Cheers. Bye bye.